Hello, everyone. Good day. You're welcome to Fortisite Cybersecurity Training course for high school students. My name is Ishaq Mohammed, and I'm a cybersecurity specialist here at Fortisite. I'll be walking through the following content. Basically, it's an introduction to cybersecurity. We'll talk about what the cybersecurity. We'll talk about importance of cybersecurity. We'll talk about hacking, and then a bit of networking. Um, but for this video, will be focused more on what is cybersecurity and what are the basic principles. Foresight is an organization which focuses on identifying security risks in the society and also, recommending and implementing controls to mitigate the identified risk. We provide strategic services which are aimed at improving cybersecurity awareness and reducing cybercrime recidivism. Um, During the course of this presentation, you hear me mention some terms like information assets. So information asset is basically is an information or data that has value to a person or an organization. Um, I'll say again, an information asset is an information or data that has value to a person or an organization. So if an information has value to an organization, then it's an information asset. Look at things like your NIN, look at things like your BVN, look at things like your card number, your credit card number, things like that are information assets. As long as it has value to you, it's an information asset. And when this information asset gets to your system becomes the information asset. When it gets to your hard drive becomes the asset. When it gets to the internet or your network becomes the asset. So basically, information asset is, you know, it could be an information, it could be a data, and it could be, um, another entity that is holding your or that is in possession of your what's it called your information. So basically, just take note that information asset is any data or any information that has value to a person or an organization. And then a network is a group of systems that's interconnected for the purpose of communicating and sharing resource. For networks, there are different kinds of networks, but the basic idea is that once two systems are connected, right, they form a network. For example, your phone, when you're trying to share things via Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a kind of network. When you're trying to use data to send from one device to the other, that's another network. When you connect a network cable from one computer to the other, it's a network. When you connect a USB, it's a network. When you connect over Xender or over, you know, um, Wi-Fi, when you connect to a Wi-Fi network, you have connected to a network and a network has been established. So it's basically the interconnection of two or more computers or systems for the purpose of communication and sharing resources. A threat is any entity or event that poses a potential danger to an information asset. So basically, anything that poses danger to you or to your asset is a threat. For example, there's the threat of maybe flood. Flood is a threat to people that are staying in areas that are prone to flood, like people that are staying close to a river or a sea, and the likes. Fire outbreak is a threat. There are natural disasters, like earthquakes. These are threats, especially those for people that are staying in areas that are prone to natural disasters. We have other threats like malware, like armed robbers. The threats. The list is just a lot. Threat actor is that particular person or individual that poses the threat to a system or a network, or let's just say poses the threat to an information asset. So basically, is an individual. A threat actor is an individual. There are some kind of threats that are not necessarily people, like flood, threats like earthquake. These are not necessarily people, but threat actors are those people that actually poses a threat to you. For example, a hacker that is trying to hack into your system. For example, an armed robber that is trying to come steal things from your workspace. So these are threat actors. Then we have vulnerability. Vulnerability is any weakness in the system that exposes it to an attack or that exposes it to danger. So basically, it's a weakness in a system, in a process, in a control that exposes an information asset to danger. So anything, any weakness that can expose your information asset to a danger is a vulnerability. So for example, your information asset is stored on your laptop and your laptop does not have an anti-malware or an antivirus. That is a vulnerability because your information asset is exposed to the danger of malware attack. A risk is a measurement or is a measure of the probability of a threat exploiting a vulnerability to cause a negative impact. So a risk is a measure of the probability that a threat will exploit a vulnerability to cause an impact. Um, that is what a risk is in simple terms. So basically, um, is a measure. When you say it's a measure, you want to know, is the risk a high risk, is it a medium risk, is it a low risk, is it a very high risk. So basically, it's just the probability that a threat will exploit a vulnerability. So for example, um, you can look at the risk of malware. How much, what's the risk that what's the risk of not using an anti-malware on your system, for example. You will now say, okay, the risk is, you now begin to measure, okay, is it high risk? What's the value of the assets you have on your system? Do you understand? So basically, risk is just a measurement of the probability that a threat is going to exploit a vulnerability. Then you have attack. An attack is any, is an attempt actually to damage, disrupt, or steal data from a computer system. An attack is an attempt. It could either be successful or unsuccessful, but take note that it's an attempt to cause damage to an information asset. Like I mentioned, your information asset could be your laptop, it could be your desktop, it could be your phone, it could be anything that has, a valuable information. Then malware is a software which is harmful to your system. So any system, any software at all that is harmful to your system is a malware. Malicious is something that can cause harm, and a breach is where an incident that causes unauthorized individuals to gain access to sensitive or confidential information. What is cybersecurity? So cybersecurity is basically a body of technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect your information assets, things like your network, your devices, your programs, your data from attack, from damage, or unauthorized access. So basically, cybersecurity, it involves those technologies, those processes, those practices that would help you protect your information assets from unauthorized access or from damage or from theft. You understand? Cybersecurity, if you look at it, it says it's a body of technology. So there are different technologies in cybersecurity that can help you to protect your assets. Technologies like anti-malware, technologies like firewall, technologies like um, SIM solution, endpoint detection solution. Technologies are just a whole lot of them. You know, we have processes, we have practices. You processes and practices are things like, okay, process conducting a vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability assessment is just to identify, vulnerabilities or weaknesses. When you say I want to find out the weaknesses in my system before a hacker does, that is a security process. Practices, when you say I want to use strong password, that is a practice. So basically these three things forms are the basic things that, you know um that makes up cybersecurity. The technologies, the processes, the practices that you put in place to protect your systems, your networks, and all your other assets from um from cyber criminals or from any form of danger. So I think anyone connected to the internet actually is is exposed, or anyone connected to the internet needs to consider cybersecurity. Everyone connected to the internet needs cybersecurity because most cyber attacks are aimed at exploiting vulnerabilities, right? So you need to know cybersecurity. Once you know cybersecurity, you'll be able to reduce the vulnerabilities so that you will not be a victim of a cyber attack. Um, so assets that can be targeted in a cybercrime includes humans, computers, phones, um, critical infrastructures like power grids, and the list just goes on and on and on. There are so many things that could be targeted. Just think of it as anything that has value to you, right, can be targeted. In cybersecurity, there are three basic elements, and they are called the CIA triad. CIA. C stands for confidentiality, I stands for integrity, and A stands for availability. Availability. So these three elements are basic elements of security. If your information asset does not have these three elements in place, then it's as good as saying you are not properly secured. First is confidentiality, and we'll talk about them in the coming slides. So, confidentiality involves those efforts that you take to secure your data or to keep it private, to 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 restrict, or let me say to protect it from unauthorized access. That is basically confidentiality, ensuring that only authorized persons can access your confidential information. If a person is not authorized, if a person is not supposed to be able to see your information, then that person should not be able to see it. Whatever it is you can do to make sure the person cannot see it, do it. That is how you preserve the confidentiality of your information asset. Confidentiality is very important. What are the things you can do to achieve confidentiality? There are basic things like setting up a pin, right, on your SIM card, locking your phone with a pin or a pattern so that not anybody who picks your phone would have access to what you've stored on your phone, like your contacts, your chats, your messages, and the likes. So this is how you can achieve confidentiality. Setting up pins, setting up patterns on your phone to ensure that not everyone can access what you're storing. You could lock your files on your system. You could even lock your system. You could set up very strong password on your emails. Don't use 1 2 3 4 5 6. These basic things. And if your information asset is stored on a paper, then you want to ensure that, okay, you are putting it in a safe, maybe in a locked cabinet in your drawer that is locked, or you are keeping it in a room that is locked with padlock. You understand? You just want to ensure that anyone that is not supposed to see that information does not see it. And the thing is that if you have a an information asset, let's say for example your credit card number, the 16 digits, the expiry date, and the CVV, you have that number stored in, let's say you have it stored on a file in your phone. Now, the moment someone else is able to pick your phone and the person is able to access the file where you stored those details, then those details as an information, they have lost confidentiality. That means the confidentiality of that information has been breached. Or let's say you are chatting with your friend on WhatsApp and a third person is able to see the message you are sending. Just imagine you are chatting with um your let's say you're chatting with your father, for example. You're sending him some messages telling him what you need, and then a third party from nowhere is able to see the messages that is being sent from you to your dad. That means the confidentiality of those messages has been breached. The message has lost its confidentiality. And if you have lost confidentiality, then there's no security. So it's very important to ensure that whatever it is that you're doing, your information assets are kept confidential. Confidentiality must not be breached. Then you have integrity. Integrity is another attribute of information, is another element of security that must be preserved. Let's say, for example, as you're chatting with your dad, you are sending him that you need 10,000 naira and you want to send him your account number, and someone in the middle is able to change the account number that you sent to him to his own account number. How would that feel? That would be very, 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 very bad. So, integrity is the attribute of an information that ensures that it must not be modified or altered by an unauthorized person. Only you, that is the authorized person, or maybe the people that you have authorized, to be able to make change to an information should be able to make change to the information. The moment a third party, the moment an unauthorized person is able to make such change, it means the information asset has lost integrity. So this is very important. And integrity for all information must be retained, must be preserved. Let's say for example, you store your card number on your phone, the CVV, the PIN, the expiry date, and then sorry, all the card number, the CVV, PIN, expiry date, and the 16 digits. And someone is able to gain access to your phone and the person changes the number. What happens? Integrity is gone because there's no longer integrity, and it's possible that the details might not even be useful to you in the future when you need it. So integrity of information asset is very important. Whatever it is that you can do to protect the integrity of your data, it's good to do it. In cybersecurity, there are several controls you can implement. You can implement things like um, logging and monitoring, so that any change that is made to your data will be trackable. You'll be able to see the changes when it was made, and the exact changes that were made. That is logging and monitoring. You might want to also implement things like integrity check. If I'm sending you a message, or if I'm sending you a file, the person, this happens when you are sending highly, like very very confidential details or confidential information. When you send it to the other person can carry out an integrity check to confirm that it has not been tampered with. And this actually mostly happens when people are downloading files from websites. You understand? When you're downloading an application, you always see something like a checksum. So that checksum is the application, the vendor of the application, people providing the application to you. They want you to be able to do an integrity check after you have downloaded, so that you will be sure that you have downloaded the correct application. Because it's possible that maybe while you were downloading, there was a man in the middle that was able to replace what you are downloading with a malicious file. So they want you to still be able to check, do an integrity check. It's possible that probably due to the bad internet that you might have, the file got corrupt, you understand, while you were downloading. And what happens? You know, the file might not be installing correctly. So it's always good to carry out an integrity check. There are softwares that can help you to carry out integrity checks. Then the last is availability. Availability is the attribute of an information that ensures that the asset is accessible anytime. The asset is available in a timely manner. So what this means is that if you have stored your CVV on a file on your phone, that information should be accessible to you anytime you need the information. The information should not be accessible only in the morning, or let's say only in the afternoon, or only in the evening, or at a particular period. No, as long as you are authorized to access the information, it should be available to you at any time you need it. So that's availability, attributes of information that must be in place. If you have lost availability, it's as good as you have lost security of your information asset. So availability must be preserved. Now, for availability, what do you do? How can you preserve availability? There are different ways. Do you know that it's possible that that file you stored with your hand, you can actually delete it by mistake and it's gone? So what do you do? Now, to preserve availability of an information that is valuable to you, you have to look at things like having backups. You have to look at things like having a failover system. Maybe for example, you have a critical laptop that if that critical laptop is down, you would lose $1 million. What do? You have a backup. You have a backup system so that when the system is down, you are able to fail over to another system. Or let's say um you are writing an examination. Let's say you are writing an examination, for example, and then your system goes off. What do? You switch to another one. Or let's say the internet is not good. It's always good to have a backup that you can fail over to when you are interacting with very very sensitive assets. So availability is very important, and the best thing you can do is to have a backup. Second thing you can do is to have a backup plan or a disaster recovery plan, such that if there's an issue along the line, you are able to continue operations without having any issues. And yeah, I would speak more on availability in the coming slides. Now, this is the CIA triad, and it's very important that we take note of it. For confidentiality, the risk to confidentiality is loss of privacy, unauthorized access. You know, loss of privacy is when something that you're supposed to keep confidential, you are not able to keep it confidential. You are not able to keep it confidentially, right? And other people have been able to access it. Now privacy is gone. Unauthorized access, other people that are not supposed to see the information have seen it. Let's say, for example, your password. You went to write it on a paper and you kept it in your bag, and then someone opens your bag and have seen your password. Now that is what? Unauthorized access. Or identity theft. So identity theft is also a thing where someone could steal your identity information that you're not supposed to reveal and use it to obtain a benefit. Let's say, for example, your NIN or your BVN, someone steals it, the person could use it to, launch another attack. Or data leakage, where the person just publishes it, just exposes it to the public for the world to see. So those are the risks to confidentiality. What can you do to protect it? Ensure you have access control. Access control is in the sense that if someone does not need to access it or does not need to access an information, the person should not be able to access the information. So you control access. You only grant people access based on a need basis, right? On a need to access basis. So if the person does not need to access, then access should not be granted. Authentication is also very important. If you have a sensitive information somewhere, you need to ensure that you have authentication controls. What's authentication? Basically, ensuring that the users are able to verify their identity, probably by entering a username and password. Just like, for example, on your phone. To secure your phone, you have to set a password. That password you are setting is an authentication control. So encryption is also a thing, and I think encryption is a bit technical, but basically it involves scrambling the information so that it will not make sense to any other person except you. Now, integrity also. Integrity can, one of the risk or some of the risk of integrity is inaccurate information, where you are trying to send a message to your dad, the account number, and then someone in the middle just changes it, right? So your dad will be getting inaccurate information, misleading information. It could even damage reputation. Maybe the person totally changed the message to something else. It could cause a damage, to reputation. It could also cause fraud. So that's a problem with integrity. And one of the things you can do to protect yourself from integrity issues or integrity breach is to ensure you have audit logs. You are able to log activities around your assets to confirm that all the activities are authorized. And if you notice any suspicious act, you take appropriate action immediately. Carry out integrity check. This is very, very important. Carry out an independent review from time to time. Just ensure that you are reviewing. Then you could also use hashing. Hash functions are a bit advanced. We'll talk about that later. And then digital signatures are also very important. We'll talk about it because it's a bit advanced. Availability, basically one of the things that could cause one of the risks to availability is loss of customer confidence. When you've told your customer that your um your application or your software is available every time. Anytime they want to book for a meal, they should just visit your website and they'll be able to book for a meal. And your website, hackers were able to hack it and the site is down. That is a problem with availability, and it can lead to, you know, loss of customer confidence, can lead to loss of money, it can lead to business disruption and so many issues. So one of the things you can do is to have a backup. Test your backup to be sure that the backup is working well. Have a disaster recovery plan and have a sufficient capacity system. Um, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. However, one of the things we are going to be doing is to have a case study of an attack, and Today we'll be looking at denial of service attack. And a denial of service attack is a cyber attack that is aimed at disrupting normal operations of a system. So basically, the way it works is the attacker does not want your system to be up at a particular time. Maybe you are their competitor, and then you people are having your Black Fridays on the same day, and this company is like, no, we don't want you to sell. We don't want our customers to go to your organization. And what do? They just launch a denial of service on your site. What does that mean? What denial of service attack means is that the attacker is sending multiple requests, multiple packets to your server. You understand? Your server is supposed to be responding to legitimate requests from customers. But because an attacker is launching a denial of service attack on your server, then it means that your server will now get busy trying to respond to the attacker's fake requests. So because your system is responding to the fake requests of the attacker, it won't be able to respond to legitimate users. And for that reason, your users, or let's say the availability of your system, will be affected. In fact, it can be affected so badly if the attacker system is a very, very, very powerful system that can send millions of requests in a very, very short period of time. So, and this denial of service attack, it can cause some kind of systems to crash. If your system is not able to withstand the number of packets that the attacker is sending to it, it can just get hot and it will burn. So denial of service attack is simply when the attacker is sending, loads of requests to a particular server. Why? Just to make sure the server is not available to legitimate users. Now, this is an attack, and it can be launched against a wide variety of systems. It can be launched against systems that are online, like websites, applications, network devices, and the aim is to overwhelm the target with massive amount of traffic. Once it's overwhelmed, the target, the server might even shut down. You understand? Because it's just keep responding to the same thing, and it's coming massively. So it can actually shut down the server if the server is not powerful enough. So, and what's the vulnerability actually? That what can expose someone to denial of service attack? One major thing that you need to think of in a denial of service attack is the resources. If you don't have enough resources, for example, you are using 2 gig RAM and you are using 2 gig RAM on your web server. Attacker is using 12 gig RAM or 16 gig RAM to launch attack on your 2 gig RAM system. You cannot survive it. It would crash. So you need to ensure that your system also have enough resources to be able to respond. So even if the attacker is coming with a high-end system, your system is also to some extent robust to receive those attacks and not even feel any much impact. You understand? But that is just one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to have a firewall. Firewall can help you to just block that attacker's IP. Once you block the IP, the nothing from there, like your server will not be able to receive any request from the attacker's machine again once the IP is blocked. So firewalls are very useful in denial of service attack. But you know that the thing is that firewalls is a reactive control, meaning that you might not even know that the attack is happening. Right? This is when you know that you can go to the firewall and block it. So first thing you need to do, make sure your systems or your servers are robust in terms of capacity. You have enough storage, you have enough processor, you have enough RAM and all that. Then have a backup. In case your system was able to fry or was able to crash, make sure you have a backup so that if there's a problem, you can always fail over to the backup system. Um, so I have just 5 questions for you. And question number 1 is, in cybersecurity, the dash of a message ensures that only authorized parties can see a message or an information. So what is that? What is the correct option? Secrecy, confidentiality, integrity, or availability? Which one of them? The dash of a message ensures that only authorized parties can see a message. So that is confidentiality, right? Because confidentiality is you trying to ensure that only authorized persons can see your message. The moment unauthorized persons gain access to your information assets, confidentiality has been lost. What's number two? If a hacker is able to modify the document which Alice uploads to our university website, which element of information security has been breached? Is it availability? Is it safety? Is it confidentiality? Is it integrity? If a hacker is able to modify. Now, when you talk about unauthorized modification, that has affected integrity. Do you understand? Once you are able to make changes to something and you are not authorized to make that change, the integrity has been lost. So the right option here is integrity. Number three says, how can you preserve the availability of an information asset? One is by backing up the information. Number two is by B is by ensuring access control. C is by installing antivirus. D is by monitoring the information. What is the correct answer? A is the correct answer because you have to back up the information. Once you back it up and let's say the primary information is gone due to a denial of service attack, then you can always go back. You can always fall back to the backup. Number four says, what element of security does denial of service attack target? Does it target integrity? Is denial of service attack against the integrity? No, it's not trying to modify your information. Is it against confidentiality? No, it's not trying to access your information. Is it against users? No, but it's actually against availability, making sure that we don't want your system to be up, we want you down. So that is denial of service attack. Then finally, is cybersecurity important to your school? Yes or no? Should I leave this for you? Okay, the correct answer is yes. It is important because in one way or the other, you are utilizing information technology. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this presentation. See you next time. Bye.